The bad news is that I filmed this yesterday. When I went to edit it this morning, the entire thing was out of focus. I guess my camera was on manual focus, and guess who did not manually focus the camera? The good news is that today when I'm refilming it, the lighting is tremendously better. The second piece of bad news is that in between today and yesterday, I have cut my bangs and they look horrific. I think I cut them too short, I cut them choppy. I'm looking at it in the viewfinder and I am embarrassed. But this is what we're working with today. Hello, welcome back, or welcome if you're new. I go by Maisie. My channel name used to be Honeybee Girl, but now it is Enough Blush, and I'm trying to post more often. I talk about art and tattoos and knitting and crochet and mental health, so if you're interested in any or all of those things, please feel free to stick around and subscribe. Today's video is just a nice little knit with me, and I wanted to talk about some common problems that beginner fiber artists, whether it's knitting or crochet, tend to have, and some common solutions to those problems. So whether or not you're a beginner, please feel free to grab your little project and come and sit down and chat with me. The first problem that I find that a lot of beginner fiber artists have just has to do with the insecurity of being a beginner fiber artist. I find that a lot of people who are new to knitting and crochet are automatically just kind of nervous to show that they knit or crochet, especially because they're in the beginning stages of learning. And I think that that's kind of true for hobbies in general. When you're new at something and you meet someone who is more advanced than you, I feel like the first instinct of a person is to kind of go like, well, I'm not as good as you though, or well, I'm still learning, I'm not as fast as you, or I couldn't make that yet. When in reality, I find that most people who knit and crochet are just so excited to meet other people who knit and crochet, whether or not they're at their skill level or not. For example, I tend to knit really quickly when I'm just kind of like in the zone and knitting. And I find that a lot of people who tell me that they knit will instantly tell me, I can't knit as fast as you though. But in my mind, I'm not thinking that person is a slow knitter. When I see them knitting, I think, oh, how exciting, someone else who knits. The community of fiber artists is so vibrant. It's so exciting to meet people who have things in common with you, especially a hobby that isn't too common. Kind of going along with that, I find that a lot of people who are new to knitting and crochet are kind of nervous to ask for help from people who are more experienced. At least in my experience, I found that people are nervous to ask me for help. Maybe it's just a me issue. I really want to encourage everyone learning to knit or crochet to really embrace their community of fiber artists. I also don't really believe that there's nearly as much of a rivalry between knitting and crochet as a lot of beginner fiber artists think that there is. Especially in real life, I find like silly memes about like the rivalry online, but I don't really think that there is one in real life, at least not in my experience. I honestly really recommend learning how to do both. They both have different qualities that are good for different things. Even better is to incorporate both into a project. My next point is something that I have coped with for over a decade, and that is it is possible to be super broke and still be a fiber artist. A lot of people kind of instantly, when talking about fiber artists, will complain about how expensive yarn is, and I'm right there with you. I firmly believe that your biggest friend when you are absolutely broke as a fiber artist is embracing secondhand supplies, especially secondhand yarn. I am fortunate enough to live very, very near a used art supply store, so I get a lot of my natural fibered yarn from there. But even if you don't have a resource like that, I don't think that the solution has to be, hang on, I gotta go back, I forgot my buttonhole. Okay, the button is hold. Even if you don't have that resource available to you, you can really still embrace using secondhand yarn. I really recommend checking thrift stores and sites like Craigslist and Facebook Marketplace, and especially estate sales for grandmothers moving out and getting rid of their large yarn collections. I've been really lucky with estate sales. I also want to encourage you to check things like Nextdoor and your Buy Nothing groups. Something that I also absolutely love to do is to buy a sweater from a thrift store with natural fibers, and you can often check the fiber contents of a sweater on its tag and then unravel that sweater and utilize the yarn for your own project. I highly recommend doing that. My cat is yelling at me. Hi, birds. Yes, so true. I also really want to encourage you to embrace your scrap projects. For me, I love embracing scrap projects. I love quirky color combinations. I love different textures and weights of yarns together. I especially love patterns that really emphasize the use of scrap yarns, such as like the scrunchie bag, I believe is what it's called. I can't wait to make like 10 of those with scrap yarn. Along those lines, I really recommend embracing household objects for your knitting and crochet. So things like using safety pins for stitch markers, or just making a little loop out of yarn for a closed stitch marker. And right here, I'd really like to point out that being somebody who engages with the fiber arts doesn't automatically make you a more environmentally conscious person. Well, it definitely makes you more aware of what kind of work goes into creating a garment, especially with crochet. There's still a huge overconsumption problem within the fiber arts community. Overconsumption is overconsumption, regardless of whether it's for things like yarn or clothing. The next issue that I want to bring up that I find that beginners tend to have is that nothing that they make them fits. As someone who is on the Big Titty committee and has different body proportions to a lot of people, I definitely can relate to this. I first want to say, do not be afraid to customize patterns. Even the shirt that I'm wearing, this is the Junebug top, and I added some duplicate stitch scissors. This is the Junebug top by Nat's Record. I added additional bust increases because I knew that this would not fit my bust the way it was, and I was correct to do so, and now it fits perfectly. Now, before you adjust patterns, it's really important that you really get to know the shape of your body and all its little quirks, etc. For example, I know that I need bust increases and decreases at the top in order to hold a shirt up. If I just do bust increases, my top will fall down. I need to add decreases pretty much immediately after I'm done increasing. If you're having the issue where nothing you make fits, I also recommend looking at made to measure patterns. These patterns are often more like a recipe that helps guide you towards your own individual stitch counts and kind of how to create your own garment that fits you perfectly. And I love made to measure patterns. I especially love the ones that embrace the use of Excel spreadsheets. Searching for made to measure patterns instead of graded patterns can kind of take the step of customizing your own project out of it for you because it's built into the pattern already. I want to let you know right now that short row shaping is your best friend if you are a human being with a large bust to waist ratio. I love short row shaping. I love the structure that it can add to a garment. I love all the different kinds of short row shaping. I'm gonna link this article right here and also in the description. It's a brilliant article about how to create your own short row shaping within patterns. The last little hiccup that I find that beginner knitters and crocheters tend to run into is the problem of not necessarily finding anything that they're excited to knit or crochet. I find that there's often a few things contributing to this. First of all, I think a lot of people hold themselves back because they don't want to try out or test out new skills that they haven't yet. And I think a lot of people just assume I haven't done this technique, therefore I don't know how to create this garment, when you can easily learn it as you're creating the garment. If you're sticking with strictly very, very basic, very beginner projects, it's gonna be hard to eventually find things that you want to create that match your style. My biggest piece of advice is to get in touch with your own style. Something that's really helped me is to look back at my old outfits and notice how many pieces have remained consistent and kind of how they've created my wardrobe as is. If you want to utilize tools like Pinterest or the Instagram Explore page, I really recommend limiting yourself to a certain amount of time because these pages can get addicting and you can be tempted to scroll for hours. I personally find most of my inspiration in things that aren't knit or crochet garments. I'll take pictures of things that I find at the thrift store that inspire my future garments. I'll take pictures of rocks or plants or things in nature that I love. I'll take pictures of anything, honestly. So many things inspire my projects that have nothing to do with the fiber arts. I've found that really getting to know myself and my own style has really inspired me and helped me create projects that I truly love for myself. My last little bonus tip that has nothing to do with the rest of this video is to weave in your ends as you go. Trust me, you'll thank me later. That was it for this video. Let me know if you have any requests. I would love to hear the kinds of content you all would like me to make. I'm trying to post more, and I say that every time, but I do have lots of plans, and I'm excited to keep posting for all 3 of you that watch my videos. I love you all. As I said earlier, if you're into things like knitting or crocheting, or art, or mental health, or tattoos, or anything, please feel free to subscribe. I would love it if you stuck around. Feel free to check out the rest of my social media and my Patreon. And I love you all so much. Remember, you are loved.